Welcome back to Battleground. Tuesday night's vice presidential showdown between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz may have been the last debate of this election. And if that's the case, it could have been the last opportunity for both campaigns to reach an undivided American viewing audience. Elizabeth Jarosz, market research specialist from Ipsos, conducted an exclusive focus group of swing state voters just for us last night. And she joins us once again. Elizabeth, good to see you.
Good to see you too, SE.
Okay, tell us about the makeup of this focus group first.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I split them in two. So there were actually two, and they were all from battleground states because that's important, as we know. And then the one side was leaning Harris, and the other side was leaning Trump.
Going into the debate. Going into the debate. Got it. Okay, let's take a look at some of your focus group footage.
So for those of you who think Vance won the debate, why?
I think he did a better job at basically snowing over his arguments. They were not great arguments, but he sounded like he won them. And so if you didn't have any other context, oh, this sounds like a perfectly reasonable thing to say. Vance was more convincing and quote unquote won, even though he was just spewing nonsense.
It was a lot of bull, but it sounded nice. It made his viewpoints seem so logical. Like, why wouldn't you want this?
I agree with that.
William, you thought Walz won the debate, yeah? Tell me why.
He won the gotcha moment.
You know, you don't need to have a flawless performance. You just need to have a flawless moment.
Walz has all of the better clippable moments that you can take and then use later.
Okay, so what stood out to you most, Elizabeth, as you listened to reaction from those voters?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, that was from the side that was leaning Harris prior to the debate.
Yep.
So the thing that stands out to me is these are undecided voters who can be very objective. They can see, who did well on this and who did well on that.
Specifically on abortion, Elizabeth, what was the takeaway from the group on that?
Okay, this one is big. So all of them, so regardless of how you were leaning prior to the debate, all of them felt Walz won the night on abortion. They felt that he was clearer, he was more passionate. There were comments about, wow, a man can really talk about this issue in a very real way. They talked about how he used names and just were really impressed. On the flip side, they thought Vance, this was one of his weaker moments of the debate. They felt like he was very vague. One of the women who was leaning Trump prior said, I don't know if he's pro-choice or pro-life. I'm very confused, So that one was clearly a Walz win.
Interesting. And what about Vance's ability to link the Harris-Walz ticket to the policies of Joe Biden on, say, immigration, the economy? Was that effective?
Oh my gosh, very effective, actually. So many of them in, the group that was sort of leaning Trump already prior to the debate, they felt like Vance did a super effective job of that. And then when the Harris-leaning folks heard that, they got upset and they said, I'm so sick of people trying to pin, Biden's policies on Harris. She's the VP. That's not what a VP does. So it was pretty lively at that point.
Interesting. Gun control was also an interesting moment in this debate. What did the group say about that?
Walz won on this one as well. They felt like he was extremely effective. So I think that's kind of a broader point. Some of them made that, Walz was more effective on substance, but Vance was more effective on style. And that holds true for the gun control conversation, the abortion conversation, across the board, really.
Yeah, I mean, we saw J.D. Vance, I think, try a stylistic change, right? He tried to sound more compassionate about on the abortion issue, for example. He was compassionate directly to Tim Walz. There were a lot of compliments, and I appreciate that you said that, Governor Walz. Did people talk about that stylistic effort on the part of J.D. Vance?
Very much. It made a huge impression for voters who don't follow politics like we do. This is their impression of him, right? They're not seeing him at the campaign rallies saying some of the things he said lately that are very in conflict with, what he said on the debate stage. So this is a really big impression. Whoever was, coaching him really had the strategy right, I think, in that case.
Yeah, and what about Walz? I remember in previous focus groups, we heard from people who just didn't know anything about him. Did they say that they got a better sense of who he was after this?
Yeah, I asked them to describe both of the candidates, and it was so interesting. They described them so differently, right? So Walz is kind of this like safe white guy. Somebody said this is a black voter, and said, he's like the guy you take to the family cookout who doesn't really belong, but he's totally himself, and everybody loves him for it.
But he's invited anyway, right? Okay.
Yeah, he's invited. He's always invited. Everybody loves him, right? Okay. And then Vance, on the other hand, regardless of what side you're on before the debate, they described him as slick, a salesman, a little bit of snake oil in there, like very different dudes. So while Vance was, projecting a certain image, there's also a little bit underneath that they did see.
Interesting. Well, Elizabeth Jarosz from Ipsos Market Research, always so great to hear from you and your focus panels. Thanks so much.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Up next, the connection between rising rent prices and swing state voters. But first, more from the Ipsos focus group and how impressed they were with both candidates. Battleground will be right back.
It was extremely civil.
They would go through and actually agree with one another on certain points. They're actually across the aisle saying, hey, I can see where they are coming from with this. And to me, that actually gives me some hope that no matter what comes for the election this year, there will actually be something positive potentially to come of that as well, too, at least from the vice presidential side.
I wish they were running for president instead of the two that are.